fellow Mavericks. Welcome to the Maverick Podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Rose. I'm the head Maverick of the day, and I'm here to welcome you. Today, we're going to have a very special guest. We had him on episode 1, and we're bringing him back. His name is Pete Sanders Jr., and he is the founder of the Free Soul organization. So, Pete, if you want to come on, he's just on hold on Zoom.
Thank you for having me again, Kathy. It's an honor to share with you and your podcast listeners, viewers.
Awesome. Well, we're here. I have a special topic that I want to talk about today related to the free soul techniques. And so for those of you who may have listened to episode 1, where we talked about Free Soul, the nonprofit public education program designed to teach you soul and spiritual skills. These are skills and techniques that Pete came up with and started back in 1983. There is a very special technique in the original course that I wanted to talk about today, and that is a technique that teaches people how to blend. So in your own words, why don't you describe what the blending technique is, and then we can talk about how you use it.
Well, I'd like to start off by saying that every book or DVD I have has on it the Free Soul method. And I always want to be clear that that's not me, Pete Sanders, Free Soul, the international nonprofit. It's the ideal that you deserve instruction that sets you free to tap your soul's unlimited potentials. Now, think of those potentials as either notes on a scale of music, or numbers, or letters, or different spices. When you're making a cooking dish, you don't put the same spices in every dish. You use different combinations of ingredients. But if you don't have those ingredients, you can't make the dish. If you don't have the different letters of the alphabet, you can't do a poem or a novel. And I'd like people to think of a series of soul skills. We talked a lot about the soul shift in the first podcast, and you are a soul, you have a body. Blending is a very unique soul skill. From my science MIT side, it's the spiritual skill that most equates to Einstein's E equals MC squared equation, that all things are energy, and that the soul is such a unique and refined form of energy that it can blend with all different energies. It's like adjusting what frequency you want to blend with, or when you're blending on all frequencies, the spiritual way of saying it is it's very easy to tap oneness, whether it's with matter or your body for healing, or with other people, or with the universe. But it's definitely a different skill than shifting your focus to the soul level and soul frequencies, or soul travel, or energy channeling. And it's an important enough skill. I know it's something you've used a lot, Kathy, that it deserves its own program talking about the importance of it, how you use it. So with that description, I'll turn it back over to you of why it's an important skill for you, and you wanted to make it the key subject for this episode of the podcast.
Mm-hmm. One of the things when I was back teaching the Free Soul course, and still to this day when I'm talking to clients, I find that so many people are looking for a way to get into the flow, to release resistance, and to relax into the rhythm of what's happening. And I find that the blending technique, the blending skill teaches you that. Now, for those of you who are listening, an easy way for me to describe how to blend would be to simply relax and merge, expanding your energy pattern. So for example, if you're sitting in a chair, and in fact, in the Free Soul basic comprehensive course, The first technique was learning to just blend and merge with the chair that you are sitting in, becoming one with it, losing that sense of boundary. You sinking into the chair rising up to blend with you. Um, and that was the first technique. And then you can expand that so that you blend with the room and so forth. But one of the top things that I think is so important is when I blend, I'm releasing resistance. When I blend, I get back into the flow. And I think that's really important.
So I'd like to add some things to that. What I've been saying lately in my Vortex talks here in Sedona, Arizona, and that's going to be another podcast segment we're going to do for later, is when you learn to tap the soul and counter limbic brain distress, the part of the brain that creates most of our anxiety. The brain scientists call that being in the state of flow, just similar to the word Kathy used. But I also like, for me, I tell people when you can do that, you can learn to be the river, not just the rapids and the rocks. We have things we experience in life, but when you can be in harmony, you can be in serenity questing instead of survival struggling. Now, Kathy knows that I am very unusual as a teacher. I'm not as much interested in money as helping people be their own best teachers. So I'm always trying to tell people how to get things the most reasonable way. Our 10-lesson course that Kathy's referring to is outstanding. It's still our best material for if you want a way to practice to make the skills automatic. But after we trained wonderful instructors like Kathy, I realized I couldn't get everywhere. So what we did was we approached Macmillan and we did the You Are Psychic book. And we said, if we can only reach people a little, how can we take the best of the 10-lesson course and put it in the You Are Psychic book? And as much as I'd love to have people order the 10-lesson course CDs or the textbook, digital download, whatever, I do feel obligated to tell people that chapter 8 of You Are Psychic, that has the title we emphasized on the first podcast, You Are a Soul, You Have a Body, it does teach those blending skills, starting with what Kathy mentioned, blending with matter, then blending with light. Because, Einstein's E equals MC squared equation changed all of science. They used to think there was matter here and energy there. And that equation said, no, it's all just different types of energy. But since we're living in the matter of the body, one of the quickest ways for people to tap blending is by blending into the body and then into the chair the body is sitting in. Now, the way the technique is written is that you soul shift and then from the soul level blend with your own body. And that kind of infuses that soul energy into the body. And then the body can more easily blend with the chair, down the legs to the room. Great instructors like Kathy, they were trained in how to say it in a way where people didn't have to soul shift and then bring the soul down. And it was basically just saying, remember, you are a soul, you have a body, and be one with your full beingness, body and soul. But it can be a great technique if you have a limited amount of meditation time and you're dealing with a lot of family or business struggles, to sit down and get in that flow state where you're connected with your spiritual creativity.
Yeah, basically, even though I would love to just lead a meditation right now on air, I don't know if somebody's driving, so I can't do that right now.
Right.
But basically, if a person were to close their eyes, take a deep breath, calm themselves, get into a relaxed state, and then focus on expanding. Some of the phrases I usually use if I am leading the technique would be to imagine that you are melting butter, and that you're just flowing and merging, or filling whatever container, like the room, that your energy field just merges and flows and expands out. But it is expansion. Now, in the first episode, we talked about the four psychic senses, and what we talk about as the gift order, meaning one sense seems to be strongest for most people. For me, blending is not a natural skill. I had to learn it. I had to practice it for years to get good so that I could blend on command. Resistance is easy for me. Pushing back, trying to force something, trying to make something happen, that's easy. Relaxing into it and flowing and merging, I had to learn. But for those of you listening, the first step, obviously, if you want to do it eyes closed, is close your eyes, relax, and then expand your energy to become one with your surroundings. And as a matter of fact, let me just segue here real quick. Both of my children went to JMU, James Madison University. And I was lucky enough to connect with their meditation group up there. They had a student-led meditation group. And I connected with the organizers, and they had me up about 4 different times, and they actually paid me, which was fabulous, to go up for their mindfulness day, which would happen right before the students did finals. And they asked me to teach techniques to prepare those students for finals so that they could be mindful and relaxed. And what I taught was a technique from the 10-lesson course, which is the sky blend. And I would teach the kids to go outside, look at the big, beautiful blue sky in Virginia, and blend out into the sky and expand their aura, because all that studying would sort of contract their energy field, and they would get focused and tight, and blending with the sky would expand and put them out there, and like a soul deep breath is the phrase we always used. So it's an easy way to do it.
And, I want to just say, part of what Kathy alluded to is that both she and I are not naturally gifted in the psychic sense of psychic feeling. Blending is most closely aligned with psychic feeling, but you can tap into that flow through all 4 of the psychic senses. And that's where, the minute you think, I am a soul, that puts you more on that soul frequency. And then it's okay to do it in the way that's right for you. A lot of the reason the sky blend works is the brain scientists say that anything that pulls us to higher cortex, and I think this may have some reflection, whereas this green picture doesn't, but the limbic brain is here, and that anything that pulls us to higher cortex gets us out of limbic, which tends to keep us in that anxiety struggle. So this is kind of later teaser for the vortex podcast. The biggest upflow vortex on the planet is the night sky, which is part of why I wanted to do voluntary service as a naval officer, being on the middle of the Atlantic, middle of the Pacific, and seeing without light pollution the heavens. But anytime you think beyond yourself, you get out of that physical limbic brain survival. Now, I'm very visual. Kathy is very visual. And I've been dealing lately with a lot of challenges that trigger me limbic into survival mode issues. And I've been looking for what are keys that can help me remember to do this stuff. The reason that many people like the 10-lesson course is it's a way to practice. And again, since I don't want people just to feel they have to buy our stuff, find your own triggers to help you to practice. And the one I'm using currently, I'm always about wanting to have insight, being visual into a situation, a person, whatever. And my expression that I'm using is upsight for insight. And upsight reminds me to look above the head of the person. So I'm sensing them as a soul. By the way, I can't help sticking this in. If we could teach all men the concept of upsight for insight, then women wouldn't be having to say, hey, stop looking here, up here, guy.
That's right.
When you look in the eyes of someone, you do tap their soul energy. But when you look above, now for an auditory person, they may get into that flow more through a tone. any tone that they associate with higher. That's why the or it's a tone they associate with soul shifting. Whereas people high in intuition, anything that triggers them in a universal perspective, whether that's astrology, thinking, again, bigger picture than just you, universe, that helps people expand. So I just want everybody to have an awareness that you can do adaptations that fit more with your strengths, but primarily deep blending does involve tapping into that psychic sense of feeling and oneness. And if you didn't listen to podcast number 1, Kathy had some great comments about the importance of cleansing, because it is important to blend either in a safe environment or being cleansed and protected. And this isn't just spiritual stuff. I think it was one of the big tech companies did a study on what made the best creative group dynamic. And it wasn't the combined intelligence of the group members. It wasn't their accomplishments. What seemed to be the key thing that turned groups loose on creativity was, did they feel safe with each other? Did they feel listened to? And, you know, the great thing about that meditation class that Kathy went and taught at James Madison is people came into that feeling safe. And I don't know if Kathy knows this one story. We had this guy from Wilmington, Ohio. He taught at Wilmington University business agriculture. It was a very kind of redneck Southern Ohio school, but it was run by Quakers. So he got to do this. So he would teach them either the soul shift or stress reduction techniques as part of class. And he sent me their their write-ups, anonymous. You could tell this one eval was from a guy. And here it was like 3 sentences. I really hate to admit it, but this stuff does work. It helps me just release my worries and the shit of the day and get into the class.
Yeah.
So that's some extra nerd parts of me that can't help explaining the science, but also trying to give you keys. Don't just automatically tap blending if you're not in a safe environment, or if you don't feel, if you've picked up a lot of stuff from your day, do an aura cleanse. You know, you get rid of the crap. And if you're not in a safe environment, don't blend with other people's anxieties that might just trigger your limbic stuff.
Exactly. I mean, if I go into a hospital waiting room where there's a lot of traumatized people waiting for their loved ones to get out of surgery and they're all stressed out, I don't want to blend there. I don't want to blend with that hospital energy. I want to shift to the soul instead, which in episode 1, we really didn't talk about the soul shift, the actual technique. The soul shift is shifting up above your head, focusing on about a foot above your head, which shifts you more into soul frequency and soul energy. We'll focus on that again at another time. But I wouldn't.
Just want to let people know, they can go to freesoul.net, and under the free soul videos, one of them will lead them through the soul shift.
Perfect. I was just going to mention that.
They can get that whenever they need it.
Yes. And it's a great technique. It's what Pete started off with, different techniques for different situations. So I wouldn't want to blend at a hospital. I wouldn't want to feel all that's happening. But in certain situations, blending has been phenomenal. And I wanted to give a few examples. Number 1 is, if you tend to get really impatient when you're driving, if you're on a highway and you're trying to pass people, you're trying to go faster than the flow of traffic. You know, let's say you're running late and there's a lot of traffic and you're weaving in and out trying to get ahead. I have always found that when I do that, I'm resisting the flow of the traffic, and I always will pass a bunch of people. And then in a few minutes, they're going to be ahead of me again, calm, cool, and collected. And I'm all stressed out because all I've been doing was resisting the flow and pushing and forcing. So I've learned in those situations to blend with the traffic flow, blend with that rhythm, which means quit resisting how slow it might be and merge and flow and relax. And I always find I get there very quickly when I do that. So when I'm driving, I blend. Now you can do it eyes open. It's called bi-level awareness. You just don't blend as deeply. When you blend with eyes closed, it's like supreme relaxation, supreme harmony. Most of the time when I teach the meditation classes with blending, people go, please don't bring me back. Just let me stay there for a while, which says how stressed out they've been, right? But when you're doing it eyes open, you're just reaching your energy out to merge with the rhythm. And back when I lived in Denver and drove on icy streets, I found I would blend out with the road in front of me to sense where there was black ice. So you're merging with that road so that you can feel with your senses when you're coming to ice, as opposed to, it really makes it sensorial and it gives you more information.
And so I want to add a couple quick things. When I first started, I was all about tapping the unlimited potentials of the soul. And I didn't have a mortgage and 2 kids. And once I did, and I learned more about that limbic brain, that's when we added the piece of the Access Your Brain's Joy Center book, that soothing limbic brain can help you do spiritual skills even when you're in stressed out situations. The reason most meditation techniques always start with close your eyes is closing your eyes is actually a limbic soother. You would not close your eyes if you didn't feel that you were safe. So you can learn to do all this stuff eyes open. It just takes the practice and, again, different skills for different situations. But let me just give you an example. Most of the time, the normal blending skill would not be advisable in a hospital waiting room. But if you were there comforting or being with someone whose relative was in surgery or whatever, then instead of blending out, you would blend up, which is basically the soul shift, but you'd blend up with your guides, your angels, their angels, or maybe you would blend up to comfort them on a soul level. Just reach out a soul arm.
Perfect. Yep.
The type of thing Kathy described in traffic, if you're the type of person, maybe a high feeling person, so if they tried to feeling blend in traffic, they could get so mellow, they blend with the car next to them. But for me, being high visual, when I think be the river, not the rapids or the rocks, I picture how the water can flow around the rock. And if you've ever seen, raft trips going down the Grand Canyon or kayaks, they don't want to go over the rocks. They don't really want to smack the rock. They kind of get in the part of the river where they flow around it. So for me, that's how I would tap that feeling without being danger. And again, we're just showing you the way to be creative and adapt it. The essence is understanding the skill and how it can serve you. And I think a lot of what blending serves is it also helps you feel not alone. You feel part of a greater whole.
Oneness.
And that soothes limbic as well.
You just brought something up with the river and the rocks that made me, again, I want to say, when you release resistance, blending is releasing resistance. And for me, because, hey, I'm an aggressive type A person. I just am. And I'm Moon in Aries if you're an astrology type, which means I want to do everything as fast as possible. So when I'm in an airport, for example, and I have to go from one gate to the next, and perhaps I'm in a hurry, blending works extremely well there too. And boy, I have noticed such a difference. If there's a crowd in the concourse and you're trying to walk in that crowd to get to your next gate as fast as possible, if I just relax out and blend with the crowd, I wiggle my way through all those tiny little crevices between people. So I'm just like snaking my way through the people, and I always get where I need to go with perfect flow, with no interruptions, and with harmony, which is the bottom line. I arrive with harmony instead of, because I'm releasing resistance.
And I'd like to share uh, another wonderful woman in my life, other than Kathy as one of our top instructors, is my beautiful bride of 43 years now, who is Sedona's longest serving public school teacher. So just finished her 41st year and 15th principal. She says to me, Pete, I can't tell my math students your free soul phrase, make life a quest, not a test. That's a little too new age even for Sedona. And she says, I just want them to learn the difference between destructive struggle and productive struggle. When they're in destructive struggle on a math problem, when they're in productive struggle, they're wondering, and that's kind of that quest. And see, when Kathy says the word resistance, that describes that destructive struggle, and flow, productive struggle, is kind of what she described as the weaving, or coming back to the river analogy, a kayaker who's paddling to get themselves in the channel that goes around the rock rather than into the rock. So I just want to be clear that you can still have intent. Is your intent quest mode, or is it test, pressure, resistance mode? And these are some of the fine points, nuances. And this is what I think made Free Soul very different. We said life isn't on the mountaintop oming. It's easy to be in peace and soul shifted and blended with the universe. Life's in the village. We have to juggle dealing with, raising kids and bills and mortgage and traffic. And how can we live life as a soul as we do that?
Exactly. Now, I have two children, and I've talked about my son before. Almost, what is he, 28 years old, 27 years old? Anyway, he's a supreme feeler. His first, second, third, and fourth gift are feeling. And he's a Pisces. So he has taught me so much about blending. I mean, that's what we do. We birth children who teach us, and we teach them. But he's taught me about blending. He's taught me about how to be a feeler. And his favorite group, band, rock group is Phish, Phish, which is funny because he's a Pisces, which is a fish. But I know. And they're a jam band. And I have had the great pleasure to enjoy Phish with my son. We go to concerts together. Now, Phish jams. And if you've ever seen jam bands, they're blending with each other while they jam. They are creating music on the spot. Now, my son is in a jam band. That's his specialty. But I remember, just a quick story here, the first Phish concert we went to, and you have to understand, everybody in the crowd blends with each other. The Phish crowd is the most amazing thing you will ever experience, because everybody's blending with each other. They're blending with the music. Everybody's dancing the whole time. But we were outside, and my son is telling me, okay, Mom, I know where we're going to end up sitting, but you have to trust me on how we're going to get there, because they open the gates and everybody rushes in and it's not reserved seating. And I'm type A going, yeah, let's do it. And he feels me getting tight and aggressive and assertive and competitive. And he goes, Mom, you are not in a Phish state of mind, and you are not going to get there if you're thinking that way. And I went, what do I do? What do I do? And he said, relax and flow. Relax and flow. You have to do that through this whole concert. And he goes, you just follow my lead. The doors are going to open. We're going to relax and flow, and we're going to get exactly where we want to sit. I will never forget it. It's, my wonderful son telling me that. And we did. It worked. And my God, Phish concerts are amazing that way, because they literally, the whole crowd blends and moves with every note of the music. And it is, of course, most of them are smoking pot and drunk, and I'm not, but so that helps them blend, I'm sure. But it's amazing. And people who go to concerts, people who love music, there is a point many times in the concerts when everybody blends with the music and they feel it. They all expand, and there's a oneness. It's another beautiful example.
And you see it with the concerts or events where people hold up the lighter and they're waving the lights, they're all together, all different countries, all different languages. It's that sense of a greater whole that can be in harmony and peacefulness rather than struggle.
But my point here is, for me, it has been incredibly important to learn this technique, to do it on command, to do it when I feel myself getting tight, when I feel myself getting out of the natural rhythm of life. If I want to get back into the flow, if I want to arrive in harmony, and if I want to manifest with beauty, I call it getting into the rhythm, the heartbeat of the earth, the heartbeat of the universe. And just another quick example of how I use blending is when I have pain. And I've had a lot of pain in the last 10 years, first with one hip that needed to be replaced, now my second hip getting ready to be replaced. And, I tend to wait until the pain is really, really bad. So the way I deal with pain is to blend and merge with it as opposed to resist it. Because think about, if you're in pain and you resist the pain, you tighten up and it becomes worse. At least for me. I find if I blend and merge and relax into the pain, it's better. Now, real quick, the example, the in my face example is when I gave birth to my children. The first baby, my daughter, I did it with a midwife, but I did it in a hospital. And I will never forget the midwife. I'm in the middle of the most intense contractions because I did natural childbirth. And she got right in my face and she said, "You're resisting these contractions. You need to merge with them." And I thought she's absolutely speaking my language. And at that moment, I needed it. And as soon as I relaxed into the contractions, pain went way down. So perfect timing on her part. And she was actually talking about this particular skill.
Because when you blend with the area of the pain, you actually open a psychic portal to dimensions beyond, yes, where you can be flowing loving energy or healing energy. And, I know you'll have people of all backgrounds who will watch this. And so let me address something I've heard other people say. Well, if you're so spiritual, why did you need a knee replacement, Pete? Why couldn't you just heal your knee? And what I answered to that person, somebody could say that to Kathy about hips, is our core philosophy is you are a soul, you have a body. Don't make the body your worth. If as a soul, you wanted to learn about how to flow extra dimensional love energy into the physical body, you might genetically, same as you have an astrological birth time, you might genetically have picked the body that would give you a chance to practice on that with something that has physical pain. Mm-hmm. And I remember as a kid watching one of the original old black and white movies called The Song of Bernadette. And it was about the lady, Bernadette, who discovered the fountain at Lourdes. And, everybody thought she was either crazy or then they thought she was just trying to call attention to herself. Even after, because she supposedly saw the Virgin Mary and was told, eat the herbs and dig there. And then the spring started. And this one in the movie, whether this happened or not, I don't know. This one particularly grumpy old nun said, here's what's keeping me from believing that you really are a saint or a high soul is you don't seem to have suffered. I've suffered as a nun in service of God, and you don't seem to have suffered. And at that point, Bernadette lifts up her robe and she has bone cancer. Incredibly painful bone cancer that she's lived with for years. And it's, like she learned not to let it affect her well-being.
Right. Not to control her state of mind.
Not to control her state of mind. And so I just want people out there to know if you have something physical that has pain, don't add to the pain by what's wrong with me? Why do I have this? Yeah. In the scope, you know astrology much better than I do, Kathy, that for something someone wanted, there might be complexities in a chart that they got to put up with to have these other good things. And the same can be true about the body.
Yeah, it goes again, release resistance. When you resist the pain, it becomes worse. When you merge with it, nobody wants it. So it's not like you're inviting it to stay. But when you merge with it, it becomes less. I mean, you can even do this. Who likes to go to the dentist? I don't like to go to the dentist. Not even I don't even like to go get my teeth cleaned if I don't have to, the smell. But at any rate, when I sit in that dentist's chair, I focus on blending with the chair, because as soon as I do that, then I'm releasing resistance to being there. I'm not being tight. I relax into it, but I choose to do this. See, this is the point. Choosing to do it, remembering to activate the process, the technique that works for you in that moment. I have one other thing I want to mention about blending, and that is, for example, speaking of being a mother, when you have a newborn and you are nursing your baby, it is natural to immediately blend because, you know, the baby is making contact with your body and you tend to blend and merge. But even if you're not nursing, maybe you're just giving the baby the bottle. Maybe it's the dad doing it, giving the baby the bottle or holding the baby or rocking the baby. Um, you tend to merge and blend and become one. And when you do that, then you get the signals of what that baby needs. What are they trying to communicate? Blending really helps. The same with pets. When you blend with a pet and you can, without even necessarily having to touch them, you can reach out with your awareness and blend and merge with your pet and find out, what is this pet trying to communicate? I have my daughter's dog. I babysit her dog. I call him my grandpuppy. And he's a boxer and he's just hysterically funny, but we're always blending with him. What is he communicating? But it's merging and tuning into him on that level. And so I find that really helps with babies, pets. It gives you more information. You can also, one of the other techniques, real quick, in your 10 lesson course, the comprehensive course, is called the motive sense. The motive, sensing somebody's motives, going past the external energy and sensing a little bit deeper to find out the intention. And I think it's a blending skill. You
And it
blend and you
is.
merge.
It is. And that's where the upsight insight helps
Yeah.
me. Because if I upsight and sense them as a soul, then even if what they're doing isn't for altruistic reasons, I may be able to understand what bruises they have in their past that are causing them to do it. And I don't take it personally and go limbic back.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to just mention, and I'm sorry for this, is going to give people a specific. Page 51 of the Access Your Brain's Joy Center book. The other very good use of the type of blending that Kathy described with nursing is to connect with souls, loved ones who've passed on. Science says every ray of light that has ever shone is still shining. So too, every energy is everywhere. And a lot of times, last things don't get said or communicated. Now, page 51 of that book has the explanation that's the proof that the soul can travel faster than the speed of light. And for some people, that hangs them up of, well, how do I know if I can reach my loved one or go anywhere? But the concept, whether you're interested in that nerd stuff or not, is you soul shift, you hold the person in mind, and holding their energy in mind helps you reach out that blending finger of your being to be with them. And a lot of times that can be a channel for things that weren't said, thank yous or I'm sorry's, or, you know.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point and a powerful skill. And you know, I guess in the end, to sort of round this up, if I were to summarize, I think the best part of blending, beside the relaxation and the harmony, is it brings me back to the now. And I think being in the now is an important skill. I deal with a lot of people with anxiety. Anxiety is on the rise. In fact, I'm going to give a lecture on anxiety signatures in the horoscope. When I'm talking to the younger people, I'm finding social media and 24-hour news cycles, everything, all that stimulation is bringing anxiety up instead of down. But what happens with anxiety is they're jumping out of the now and they're jumping into a future and worrying about something that hasn't happened yet. And one very important skill to counter that is nowness, coming back to this moment right now. And for me, triggering blending helps because it merges with what is here right now as opposed to the future. When you're in the future, you're not blending
And very
necessarily.
frequently, people deal with anxiety by being human doings, not human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they get the struggle, the resistance type of struggle. So when I think human being, I go human, because I'm high auditory, so words help me stay on track. Human be in the moment. And just for other words, Kathy and I are very comfortable with the word resistance, counter resistance. But for many different disciplines, you'll hear it described as how to love. If you're resisting, you're not loving, whether it's the pain in your body or what you're dealing with. When you're not loving, you're judging, you're not seeing the learning opportunity. I'm in this shit anyway. I might as well learn from it, enjoy it. That's what Quest Not Test is about. But find your own right way. Get to the essence of the concept, whether it's be in the now, go with the flow, but know that your birthright as a free soul is not to be consigned to struggle and unhappiness. You can
Exactly.
learn you can be back better by learning new skills.
It's also, though, to just sort of wrap this up, it is understanding that you have a toolbox full of skills that you can develop and have at your fingertips if you remember to reach into that toolbox and bring that technique out. So it is being conscious of that. I mean, we accidentally merge and blend when we're at a concert. We accidentally merge and blend when we're holding a baby in a rocking chair. I'm talking about doing it on command when you need to do it and saying, boy, that blending technique would help right now because I'll get from gate A32 to gate C59 in the airport much faster if I'm blended.
And
And it's
Kathy, I'm
true.
sorry, I can't help but add, this takes us a little bit out of the now, but very frequently when we forget to do what you just described, we do this, sit down, go back in time and think, what could I have done different? And then flow that reminder
Mm-hmm.
forward.
Yes.
And we've talked for decades about bi-level awareness. It's in the You Are Psychic book, chapter 8. In one of our past Sedona retreats, we talked about tri-level awareness, like a trimaran, where you're in the now, you can reach into the past, flow love back, and also forward to allow yourself to
Mm-hmm.
be learning the river, not just the rapids or the rocks.
Exactly. And it's making choices to be free. Well, thank you so much once again, Pete. Again, the website, freesoul.net. You can find the soul shift technique on there. Check out his book, You Are Psychic. Absolutely. Look on the website for the book, Access Your Brain's Joy Center. Great book, great techniques. And we're going to be talking more about this in some future episodes. All
Thank you
right.
again for having me, Kathy.
You're welcome. And bye for now until we meet again, which is, how Pete likes to end things. All right. Bye-bye.